Which driver will finish on top in the 2022 Formula 1 season? Hey guys, it's Taran and welcome to the On Track channel, where in today's video we'll be going through my 2022 pre-testing predictions, Drivers Edition. I'd also recommend you check out my predictions for the Constructors standing, as it sets the basis for a number of these drivers, as realistically, nobody's winning the championship with the worst car. I'm looking at you, 2021 Haas. Starting with P19 and P20 on the back row of my driver predictions grid is the rookie Guan Yu Zhou and the Russian bank of Nikita Mazepin. Starting with Mazepin, he had what was probably one of F1's worst rookie seasons ever. The F1 world didn't really expect too much, and saying he underdelivered is still an understatement. Obviously, the car played a big part in that, but he was still comprehensively destroyed by his teammate Mick Schumacher, who also was a rookie, so no excuses there. I think Haas will be towards the back of the pack, and Nikita will be there too. Guan Yu Zhou in 19th will be Formula 1's first ever Chinese driver, and in these rankings benefits from not having a year to cement his reputation as a paid driver. But unfortunately, I don't think he'll make a big impact in the sport, given it took him 3 years in Formula 2 to even finish third. I don't think Alfa Romeo will do too well either, and combine that with a driver who had a similar F2 record to Mazepin, you're asking for a low finish. The next two spots, 17th and 18th, go to Nicholas Latifi and Yuki Tsunoda. In 18th, Tsunoda's a tricky one for me, as he's had some very good moments and definitely got better towards the end of the year, but overall really struggled and was still comprehensively beaten by Pierre Gasly. I think a lot of Tsunoda's position here is also based on the fact I don't think AlphaTauri are going to have a great 2022, as they're always generally towards the lower midfield / back of the pack. And while I think Yuki will continue to improve, I don't think it will be enough to pull himself up the standings in an underperforming car. For Latifi, it's a make or break season. Dorilton have said they don't need pay drivers anymore, and this season Latifi really needs to show he's not just Canadian cash on wheels. It has been harder to rank him and to get a true idea of his ability while having Russell as a teammate. He did outqualify Russell a couple of times towards the end of the season, but like Tsunoda was beaten pretty easily by his teammate. The thing that does save Latifi from being any lower in my predictions is that I do think Williams are set for a fairly strong season. In P15 and P16, I've put Lance Stroll and Mick Schumacher. I think while it was hard to judge Mick's ability fully last year, given Haas decided to bring an F2 car to the grid, he did show a lot of good signs. His battle with Verstappen in Hungary comes to mind and showed that he's very capable of driving at an F1 level. He beat his teammate and occasionally was challenging the cars ahead, which to be honest is all anyone could really ask for. He wasn't perfect throughout the season, and the German did make a few mistakes. Monaco practice and the race in Saudi come to mind, but that's probably to be expected of a rookie, especially when you look at how undrivable the Haas car was. Now Lance Stroll in 15th is this low mainly based on the fact I don't think Aston Martin will have a great year. With Otmar Szafnauer and BWT leaving before the season starts, it doesn't look great. As much as I think Stroll has shown to be a decent driver, he now has 5 years F1 experience under his belt and has only outscored his teammate once in that entire time, when he beat Sergei Sorokin back in 2018. Given all that, he doesn't really look like he'll make it up to that next tier of great drivers. The combination of those things makes it hard for me to see him too much higher up the grid, unless Aston Martin pull an absolute worldie with the new regulations. In 13th and 14th, I have two veterans in Sebastian Vettel and Valtteri Bottas. For Valtteri, I think being Lewis Hamilton's teammate over the past few seasons has hurt his stock a little, but I do think he's still a good driver, capable of putting in some good performances and getting a good amount out of the car he's in. I've also put Alfa Romeo 9th in my Constructors predictions, but I do think Bottas will be able to pull out some results here and there, especially compared to his rookie teammate, and that should be just enough to bump him up the order a little. I've put Vettel in 13th because, as sad as it is to say, I do think we're starting to see the end of Seb. He's spoken in interviews about if he'll be around in a couple of years, and I don't think he has quite the same fire we saw during his Red Bull and Ferrari days. He's not gone full Kimi Raikkonen with F1 just being a hobby, but unless the car is near the top, I don't really see him being extra special in 2022. Given that I don't see Aston Martin performing too well, I can't put him much higher than 13th. But I do think he'll outperform his teammate Lance Stroll just as he did in 2021. Unfortunately for me, I just can't see the title challenging and title winning Seb returning, at least not for this year. P11 and P12, just outside the top 10, we have an all-French row with Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Now Gasly in the AlphaTauri over the past 2 seasons has shown just how good and how consistent he is. hence why I've put him 6 places higher than his teammate Tsunoda. I think that gap is definitely a deserved one, especially as we've seen Gasly be able to take advantage of some crazier races such as finishing P2 in Brazil 2019 and winning in Monza in 2020. Unfortunately for Pierre, I'm not really seeing a big season for AlphaTauri, which in all honesty is the main reason why I see him dropping down a little in the standings from his 2021 finish of 9th. Now in 11th place, Ocon and Alpine is a solid partnership, but one that I'd say lacks anything too special. Esteban has had some good and bad races, he is of course now an F1 race winner, but overall I don't think he has the same raw ability as the likes of a Charles Leclerc or Lando Norris. For me, it'll be interesting to see how he does given his contract has a full 3 seasons left, as I know many drivers say they much prefer having some long-term security. Overall for me, he'll do a decent job picking up some good points, but in general will just sort of be there or thereabouts. Into the top 10 with Daniel Ricciardo in P9 and Alex Albon in P10. Looking back, this may be a little high for Albon, but I am predicting a decent season for Williams, and I think that this year they should put a relatively good car together. Having had a year out, he'll be coming back in Hungary, wanting to show how good he is, and based off what we saw from 2 seasons in 2019 and 2020, I definitely think it's fair to say he's shown enough to be considered a good driver. I also think the regulation change may well help a little, as while he'll have to get used to a new car, so will everyone else on the grid. Now in P9 alongside Albon, I've put Ricciardo, and that's for 2 main reasons. The first is that I don't quite see McLaren really pushing up the grid too far this year, compared to the likes of Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull. I just have the feeling they won't quite improve like they have in the past 2 seasons, which, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see, but at this point, I can't quite. With Ricciardo in the new cars, I almost feel like he could be the opposite of Albon, in the sense that in the past Danny Ric has really struggled to adapt to new machinery, and we saw that at both Renault and McLaren. Given how drastic the regulation changes are, I do think he'll struggle to quite get a grip with them, especially to start the year. For P7 and P8, I've put Sergio Perez and Mr. El Plan Fernando Alonso. Now with Fernando, I think he could definitely be the hungriest driver on the grid this year, as he's not getting any younger. He did surprise me however in 2021 with his pace and racecraft really showing he can definitely perform at the top level. Topping off his season highlights with some of the best defensive driving I've seen in Hungary, as well as his podium finish in Qatar. Unfortunately for Fernando and his quest for another title, I don't think Alpine will have a championship contending car in 2022, and therefore he's stuck in P8 for me. Still 2 places up from last year though. Next to him, down 3 spots from last year, I've put Sergio Perez. I don't think Red Bull will quite be up there in 2022 given how much they put into 2021, as well as the fact they're having to take on their own power units from Honda. While I think Verstappen will get the best out of the car, I can't quite see the same for Perez. He was comprehensively outqualified by Verstappen and only finished ahead of Max when the Dutchman crashed out of the race. I can however see the new cars playing into his strengths, in the sense that closer racing should allow for the Mexican to make up places a little easier than last year, especially if he continues to struggle a bit with his quali pace as he did in 2021. In P5 and P6, I've put the past McLaren bromance of Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, with the Brit being pipped by the Spaniard for the 3rd year in a row. Lando really showed improvement last year, with multiple podiums, and he definitely could have won in Monza and Russia. He also made most people's top 5 drivers of the season and will probably make many top 3s. If he can continue that way, I can definitely see him beating his teammate Ricciardo just as he did in 2021, but I don't think the McLaren will have the ultimate pace to compete right at the top, and so it's still only P6 for Lando. For Sainz at Ferrari, I'm predicting a 5th place finish once again. Carlos has shown his consistency and really put himself into the conversation of top drivers over the last 2 years, with beating his teammate Leclerc being the cherry on top of a very good season. Placing him this low isn't a slate on Sainz, but more an effect of how good I think the remaining 4 drivers are. Overall, 2020 should be a strong season for Sainz, but while he can often match and beat Leclerc, I wouldn't be surprised if his end of season points total is hampered by Ferrari choosing to favour his teammate, which given Leclerc's position as the sort of golden boy of Ferrari, and the fact that I have them challenging for wins in the championship, I could definitely see happening. In 3rd place, I have Max Verstappen, and in 4th, I have George Russell. I think for me this may well be the matchup I'd be most looking forward to seeing. Russell would definitely be eager to show off his ability and justify the decision Mercedes made to replace Valtteri Bottas. If his pace that we saw in Sakir in 2020 is anything to go by, he should be able to net himself a very good finish in his first season with the Silver Arrows, especially as I can see Mercedes having a very competitive car. I think he may well start off a little like Bottas, where he'll do well in qualifying versus Hamilton, but not quite have the race pace, and from there I could see Mercedes backing Hamilton more for a title challenge as the season progresses. I don't have him beating his teammate this year, but I definitely think he'll be an upgrade on Bottas and will show why he's the future of Mercedes. For Verstappen in P3, I could see the season being a bit of a frustrating one for the Dutchman, especially coming off a World Championship win. As I said in my Constructors video, I think Red Bull may well take a little bit of a step back in 2022, and so a P3 finish with Verstappen wringing absolutely everything he can out of that car is something I could definitely see happening. He scored over double the points of Perez last year and was immense in qualifying, hence why I have him 4 places higher than his more experienced teammate. It may be unwise to move the reigning champion down a whole 2 places, but ultimately I think that will be more due to the car than his driving. So finally, P1 and P2. Who do I have winning the 2022 Drivers' Championship? Well, in P1 I have Charles Leclerc, which means I think Lewis Hamilton will finish runner-up for a second year in a row. Lewis is Lewis, and until he retires, he'll always be getting the very best out of his car. I am predicting a good season for Mercedes with them winning the Constructors, and I think that'll help Hamilton to not only stay right at the front of the grid, but put together another title challenge. The big thing for me will be how Lewis bounces back from the way the championship ended last year. While he's shown that he's more than capable of dealing with adversity, I think last year will have hit differently. Losing in the way he did may well end up having a more lasting impact, but we'll have to wait and see. In first place, I have the man from Monaco, and for Charles Leclerc, I think we've been seeing him getting better and better over the past few years, even with cars not being at the same level as when he joined the Scuderia in 2019. There's been lots of positivity surrounding Ferrari in the build-up to 2022, and their strong finish to the 2021 season does make me think they can carry that momentum into the new year. And of course, there's no doubt they have the facilities, personnel and resources to create a championship-winning car. Combine a top team with a rising young star hungry to bring their team a first championship in a number of years, and it may well be a winning combination. I feel like we've seen that somewhere before. That is all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and click the subscribe button for more F1 related content. Please leave any feedback, suggestions or opinions in the comments down below, and until next time, take care.